So welcome to this week's edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. Thank you once again for taking time out of your Wednesday evening to spend it here, always in the spirit of community, mentorship, and learning. I'm your host, Dave Nava. I'm the lead solution engineer at Salesforce, and I'm a military trailblazer. So each week, as you know, we invite a co-host, sometimes co-hosts, to take part in the conversation so we can leverage their experience, their expertise, and their unique perspectives. So I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our co-host for tonight's session, Adam Best. Adam is a senior program architect at Salesforce. He has over 12 years of Salesforce expertise delivering small and large-scale Salesforce transformations across multiple industries. And he is a Salesforce development operations or DevOps subject matter expert and thought leader within the Trailblazer community. It's awesome to have you co-hosting Office Hours with me, Adam. Welcome.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
I'm usually silent on a train, listening in. But I'm at home today, and very happy to always help out and chat with fellow trailblazers or aspiring trailblazers. So.
Yeah, it's awesome, and we appreciate it. Do you want to take a moment and share your Salesforce story?
Sure, absolutely. Well, David, you just gave me the perfect 30-second elevator pitch, but the long version. Look, out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I did some accounting. I was an accounts clerk, accounts payable, accounts receivable. Funnily enough, I had a knack for computing in high school and found myself learning to program myself, not in Salesforce, but in other technologies. So with over 20 years, I guess, tech experience in .NET and open source, I found my way to the Salesforce industry. Someone tapped me on the shoulder, said, "Hey, come look at this." And 12 and a half years later, it's a thriving industry. It's a leading industry. But I think my story is pretty simple. I'm a simple person. I never went to university. So, after high school, I just went and started working. And so I think, there's a lot of stories where people are really coming into technology now, not having a degree in IT or computer science or those types of that type of education. So program architects. So what do we do? We're solution architects. We're technical architects. We are enterprise architects. And my job is to help mainly EBU customers. So they're larger customers, maybe transformations of 20 million to, $1 billion. Our job is to really help the customer design their program, design their digital transformation, make sure they're set up right, and help them with their roadmap, technical, if it's not a greenfield org, a technical debt, data modeling, integration, security. We're probably sitting next to their in-house enterprise architects, looking at that cross-platform strategy, whether that be integration, governance, and what I love and evangelize about a lot is development operations. So that's all about the people, process, and technology working well together to form a digital transformation. So I haven't been in a smaller customer for a while, but I'm definitely I still don't lose touch with my roots, and I like to be on this side to help folk like yourself discover what you want to do. It's a big ecosystem. Anything from how to get a job and personal branding, and that's why I think people like David are so great, because we as architects, have a duty to give back and to help others, and that's really rewarding too.
Yeah, it really is, and I appreciate the introduction. And if you want to share your secret, I'm also interested in getting some of those billion-dollar accounts under my belt, so we can touch base afterwards.
Yeah, the bigger the money, the bigger the stress.
Yeah, I believe that. That's awesome. Thank you. So I do see some faces that are on here for the first time, which is awesome as always. So I'd like to briefly explain kind of the purpose of office hours before we open the floor for questions and discussion. So for those folks that are maybe joining for the first time, these sessions are intended to be an informal get together with for gathering with military trailblazers as well as allies to explore the non-technical side of Salesforce with respect to career and branding related topics in order to help you achieve your professional development and your career related goals. So for the next hour, this is your time to engage in collaborative mentorship where everyone on the call is encouraged to step up and help answer questions from your perspective, which provides diversity of experience to the answers. So I spend a good part of the week collecting articles and knowledge tidbits from LinkedIn and other sources. So keep an eye on the chat window. I'll be posting those in there throughout tonight's session. Some of them have are free training opportunities, really great podcasts, and feel free to share your content too. The focus for tonight's session, as you may have guessed, is exploring the architect career path. And Adam has been gracious enough to also provide some expertise around personal branding tips and guidance. So for those folks that joined last week, we got into that discussion and we kind of cracked the surface. If you want to explore deeper, please feel free to add those questions to your list and pose those. And again, ask a question at any point during the session simply by raising your hand or by typing a question in chat, and I'll go ahead and be looking for those as they come up. So before I turn it over to you to ask questions, I'll go ahead and just throw the first one out there on the floor and just kind of ask, Adam, what his motivations are for choosing the architect career path and what keeps him there.
A good question, David. I don't know if I've thought about that before. I think, naturally when you're looking, when you're starting out, you're usually on small business and you're usually a solution architect or a technical architect. I ventured into Salesforce developer. So solution architect, you're a point to click and you know the clouds pretty well. Your declarative pretty well. The technical architect is more deep into the low code and no code side. So you're looking at your programming in Apex, development in LWC, so Lightning Web Components, integrations, security to a certain extent, although that's a solution architect to a certain extent. Then what you generally do after you get to stay as a developer, because it's quite a fast pace, is you become a technical architect, and then the next level above that, I think, where I'm sitting at today is program architect. So I'm just not looking at technical architect. I'm looking at the program as well. So, how is a transformation successful? What type of operating model do you need for your size of business and transformation to build, test, and release? Looking at, do we have the right dev coding standards and common patterns? Are we to increase quality or to maintain a level of quality? Skills, do we have the right skills in the team? Are we looking at the right methodology for the program, whether it be agile, waterfall, or a bit of both? I'm just thinking about what I do every day, helping the customer with procurement, helping the customer choose an SI, not necessarily be part of the panel, but help them with the ecosystem and help them understand what an SI is. So an SI is a consultancy firm, a system integrator. If you've heard the term GSI before, that just means they're a global SI. So folks like Accenture and Capgemini and Deloitte, if you've heard those names before, PwC, also another GSI. Helping what we would call executive sponsor, so who's sponsoring the Salesforce program in their particular organization, helping them with their business case, helping them with steering committee meetings, helping the junior developer, who's employed by the SI, who might be offshore, helping them with their problem. So we're really there. I mean, when I said we're there to make the customer successful. We're there to make everyone successful, okay? Because your success is our success. So I think the highest level I've actually got a slide on this I'm going to present. So technical architect is, I guess, more of a journey past developer. So if we have a look at, I'm just going to share my screen.
Yep, it's coming up. Perfect. Got it.
Brilliant. That's awesome. So this is a particular image that you can get off Trailhead. So Trailhead is our online learning platform. If you haven't heard of it, Trailhead is awesome, bite-sized chunks of learning that is fun. And so this is what an architect journey would look like. So you've got an application architect. So that's more about looking at the point and click things and the platform. So you've got a system architect, which is more developer, and then you've got the technical architect, or the CTA. I think not everyone strives for, but a lot of people strive for what's called a CTA, which is the highest certification you can get. It's a few tests and then a panel presentation, a 3-hour grueling panel presentation. So that's, if you're looking at becoming an architect, that's what your journey would look like. So I guess what we and the parts of the architect, the CTA would be similar things to what I do in my job today. So you've got system architecture, security, data, solution architecture, integration, DevOps, development lifecycle, and deployment planning, and also communication as well. I think the third point on the architect mindset is, difference between a solution architect and a technical architect is, clicks before code. What can we do on the platform before we go down a low code or a code solution? And when you get into technical architecture or technical architect, it is more venturing into not only the clicks, but the code. So if you're talking to a developer and you say, hey, go build me something, or I've got a particular business requirement, a good technical architect will still look at the clicks before the code. Because if you go straight to the code, first of all, you're going to increase your investment because it's going to take you longer to do, and it's going to increase the cost of ownership. So we always say, go no code. I'm creating a field. Low code. I'm not going to say process builder anymore. That's end of life in a few years. Flows, lightning flows, and then go down your Apex coding if you can't use if you can't meet a requirement that a no code or low code feature will give you. And that's the same for your objects as well. So if you're going to build and design something, try and use objects that are already there. Try and use your data model, existing data model, your native data model. If you installed a managed package, use that data model before you go create that new field or that new object. We do have, so along with the technical architect or the CTA, we do have a couple of new certs out there, David, for solution architects. So we've got a B2C, business to customer solution architect. We also got a B2B solution architect as well. So so there's a few paths you can go down, but everyone starts from the same place. We all start on Trailhead, doing our admin cert. That was my very first cert. I'm not going to say too many years ago because I was a bit late at getting my admin cert. I think I did it maybe 2014 or 15. You got to look up my certs on Trailhead. Adam Best. There's not too many of us. And then obviously you're going to work your way up the ladder, not only by doing more Trailhead, but with your experience that you're gaining along the way as well. A lot of these certs are difficult if you don't have that that on the job experience.
I appreciate you going over kind of the hierarchy of the different architect paths. And I think it's important to note too that you can achieve the architecture certification and not necessarily have architecture as your main title. It's just something that you're passionate about. That overarching macro view of the platform and all the various clouds within it. That's a great goal to achieve as you master some of the entry-level requirements like admin, platform app builder, and then you kind of build upon that with some of the cloud service sales experience to be able to take it to the next level and earn some of those architecture certifications to round out your knowledge.
It's a lot. It's a big platform, and so you're not going to be able to do everything in the first 3 years unless you're someone like David Nava. But you're really looking at, well, do I want to be a developer? You can be a technical architect without being a developer, although some of those principles would need you to learn about some of the features like Apex, and not necessarily have the software engineering skills. So if you're not really inclined to be a developer, solution architect is the way to go. And it is so big. There are so many parts of Salesforce. You've got your service and sales. You've got Experience Cloud, and then you've got all the different industries, like you've got financial service cloud and health cloud and gov cloud, and there are so many clouds. I forgot how many we've got now. But then you've also got aka Einstein Analytics, Tableau CRM, and Tableau as well, and going across to integration, MuleSoft. So there is a variety of areas that you can excel in. My one piece of advice is everyone needs to be good at core. You need to be good at flows, and understanding what you can do with clicks before you go down the code route. So core plus, something like CPQ, or if you're marketing inclined, there's a bunch of, kind of marketing deep dive areas like Marketing Cloud and Datarama, and Pardot, which does also let you, it also lets you kind of use your deep knowledge in the marketing industry as well. So Spam Act compliance and consent and all those types of things. So it's a big platform, but I think everyone needs to be good at core to be able to venture in those other clouds as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've got a couple hands raised. Dwayne, then Stephen, then after Stephen, Wade is on the call and wants to add a resource and put that out there. So Dwayne, you're first up.
Yes. So do you have to be very familiar with the different clouds of Salesforce to be an architect? There's so many of them.
Yeah, Dwayne, I know. If you came to work for my department, you'd probably need to know the clouds. But it really depends what industry you're in. So and segment as well. So if you're sitting in small to medium business, I think you'd usually be sitting on core. So just your sales and service cloud. So I think sales and services is first and foremost the most important. Sales, service, experience. Sales and service, because that's, I guess, core CRM, customer relationship management. Experience, because you do, you are connecting your customer with their customers. So an Experience Cloud does that as well. Or is that's one channel. Unless you get in the larger spaces like financial services or government or healthcare, you may not get to look at financial service cloud and health cloud and so on and so forth, because they generally sit in the CBU, the commercial business unit, and the enterprise business unit space. So if you're in the small business unit, if you're in the small to medium business space, you should be looking at things. You should be really, I guess, an ambassador, an evangelist of your sales service experience. You should have a lot of tricks up your sleeve from apps on the App Exchange. Things like form assembly is really quick and easy to build customer facing forms or public facing forms. Yeah, Clicks and App Exchange apps would probably be your area until you're venturing into the commercial or enterprise business unit space.
Thanks for the question, Dwayne. Stephen, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. Hey, Adam, thank you so much for being here. For someone that's looking to pursue the CTA down the road, are you saying that you'd recommend, their admin and platform app builder, and then going towards the developer one certification to get more of that code experience as you're, working at a shop to get that, work experience? But someone that's interested in being a CTA specifically, would you recommend that? The only reason why I ask is because David mentioned being an admin, platform app builder, then focusing on sales and Service Cloud certification. So just wanting your opinion on kind of that conversation. Thanks, sir.
Yeah. Stephen, that's a good question. So I guess it's really what you're comfortable with. So yeah, definitely everyone starts from administrator. If you come from a background industry, and I know we're military folks here, and I should have started by saying thank you for your service. I was never in the military. I got rejected from being a pilot, Mr. David, but I don't know why. Maybe my eyesight or something. But a lot of military in my family.
Too handsome.
But look, whatever you're comfortable with. So you might be scared of a little bit of code at the moment. So administrator, app builder, the consulting certs that you just that you just talked about, that's really going to be your clicks and your consulting and your approaches. So say Service Cloud is, well, how do we implement Service Cloud successfully? What are the stages are we going to do it? It is your omni-channel and case management and things like that as well. But when you get into things like Flow and Flow Builder in your, say, your advanced admin, then that's really starting to introduce you to the journey of code, even though you don't know it, because it's kind of logic and elements. So if you're not comfortable doing dev one, the same time you're kind of going up the other side, then just go up the other side, and so that you're consulting, and then start to go up all your dev one, security and integration. I forgot the other ones. Yeah. So and then go up the other side. Probably the one tip I'd give you is just consistency. Okay. So if you're a trail a day keeps the doctor away, I say, or a module a day keeps the doctor away. So don't it's a journey. Don't try and do it all at once. And if you get on a project that is looking at Experience Cloud, you might actually set Experience Cloud to be your next cert, because you're working on Experience Cloud and you're exploring and you're trailblazing, and you're like, you know what? I'm halfway through build. I got this. I'm gonna go do the Experience Cloud one next. And that's what my brother-in-law did. He's he's 2.5 years into the ecosystem. He's an ex-football player. Football has nothing to do with technology, but the fact that they're on a TV, maybe. And now he's a Salesforce consultant. He did do object-oriented program at college, funnily enough. And he asked me, he said, you know what, Adam, what's this Salesforce thing? I said, it's a great vertical of IT. I think it's a leading vertical of IT, but you have to do your admin cert first. So he went and spent 9 months on Trailhead doing his admin cert, got his first job at a small boutique SI. Sorry, Stephen, you're moving left to right here on the screen with people coming. But and now he's done a little bit of APIS coding, but he loves that interaction with the business. He loves the consulting part. So he's going to venture into solution architect. He may not go down technical architect, even though he has, I guess, some of that background, object-oriented programming experience for being a developer. So, you know, it's also about your passion. What are you passionate about? What interests you as well? So, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, we've got Elio up next, and then Phil's got a question in the chat, and then we'll get to Marcus. So, Elio, your turn, sir.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah. Hey, Adam. Thanks for joining here. Actually, you answered some of my questions in that
You're
deal
welcome.
about how it's truly a journey, right? Some of the folks with your certifications that I've met in my career, it's not just the technical know-how. You're a thought leader. You're expected to engage with the business, right? Because as an architect, there's a lot of other skills that you're applying. Am I right? It's not just necessarily here's the architecture of the solution. At least the CTAs that I work with are, in my view, have a well-rounded understanding of the business. Is not necessarily just the technology. And I think you mentioned some of that in your answer to.
Right. So, so let me correct you there. I'm not a CTA. I'm a program architect.
Okay.
Everyone in my role, you know, is on a path to CTA. I'm expected to do my CTA, and I guess I've got the depth and breadth of the ecosystem and the technology to do the CTA. There are more CTAs in Salesforce than there are, I think, in the wider ecosystem. But you're right, Elio. So when you're looking at a solution, it's not just necessarily the technology. And here's a good example. So you've got a company that's moving from spreadsheets to Salesforce, or from spreadsheets to a platform rather. You're going to want to start them really simple. Or if they're doing a migration from a legacy system to Salesforce, you can lift and shift, but you can also transform as well. So if you're doing a transformation, you're not lifting and shifting the same process from one system to another. Okay, you're doing a transformation. So let's think about that, Elio. We've got, let's just say we have a business of 500 users. So that might be 500 licenses on Salesforce, and the use case was they also have a community that they want to service people in. They needed authenticated users so that they can talk to them about, you know, confidential things like invoices or maybe returns or something. So now you're looking at Experience Cloud. Well, you can get two different types of licenses. Actually, you can get 4 types of licenses. You can get custom community license for those users. You can get partner community user, depending on what objects you need, and also breaking those 2 types of licenses up. You can either get named user, so they're called members. So in other words, you've got a customer logging in. They might be, you're going to be licensed. That license, or one license, will go to that member. Or if you're more like, you know what, I'm only going to have a customer interact with me securely once a year, I'm going to get a number of logins. So I might buy 1,000 logins per month, and then so 1,000 members can log in, but you might have 10,000 members overall that actually have access. So when you're thinking about a solution, you are looking at the features. It always starts with the clouds. What cloud are we looking at? We're looking at service or sales or Experience Cloud or Marketing Cloud. And then it's, well, what type of licensing do we need? Okay, because it might not be viable based on the licensing. You know, we might get down the route, oh, we've got 100,000 customers and we all need them to log in every day. You might not have the budget for Experience Cloud. Okay. The other, when you get down a technical architecture route as well, you're also looking at governing limits. Okay. So what I mean by that is Salesforce is a platform as a service. And so every customer is on the cloud, but they're sharing an instance. And Salesforce is always up and it's always performance. And you trust Salesforce to be like that. And part of that trust comes from the what's called governing limits, which prevents rogue scripts or poorly written code from bringing down the performance of that instance, or and you know, sometimes bringing the whole thing down. And what I mean by that is, if you're I guess a governing limit that most people would know here, if no one knows, then I apologize. I've been out of it too long, but there's something called 101 DMLs inside a for loop. And so what that means is, when you're writing code, even in things like flows, you've got to write it in a way that you're going to, you might query some records. Let's just say we're going to query 1,000 records. And then for each of those 1,000 records, we want to update, say, you know, email address or something like that. And so we're going to do the update in a for loop. We're going to go, give me the 1,000 records. Then I'm going to loop. And then I'm going to update each of those records with, you know, .com at the end, bad use case. And then when I finish the loop, I'm then going to perform an update. I'm going to update Salesforce with that. If you do that programmatically inside Apex, and you say, I'm going to, for every 1,000 record, I'm going to change a value and then I'm going to update. Well, you're updating within that for loop and within a single Apex transaction. Think about an Apex transaction as when someone clicks a button to someone sees the next screen. In a single Apex transaction, you only have 100 DMLs, okay, updates, before Salesforce will go, I'm sorry, you've exceeded your limit. And that's a lot of DMLs. It's a lot of database interactions, right? If you're updating 1,000 records, you only have to do one update. If you're updating 1,000 records and you get to 101, well, that's your 101 inside a, you know, so no DMLs inside a for loop. So it's limits like that. When you look at these limits, it's limits like that which keep Salesforce up and performance, and that's where you trust Salesforce. So it's really important to know not only the licensing side of it based on the use case, but also how does that licensing then turn into limits? What limits do I have? Okay, if you know, every full license of Salesforce adds certain limits, adds file storage, adds you know, database storage. So you got 500 users, you got a lot of data. You can put 1 million records into an object. If you only have 5 or 10 users, your production data won't be that high, so you might not be able to cope with millions of records. Yeah, so licensing and limits, governing limits, is just as important as what features we're going to then be using. Out of the box features first, of course, like business processes and support processes for your sales and service. Yeah, absolutely.
You bring up a great point, and it's funny. Like, the reason why I got interested in the whole architect career path and ended up earning my application architect was not because necessarily I wanted to be an architect, which, you know, is a great thing to be, but it's because my dev org was full of data and I couldn't use it anymore. So I had to figure out how I was going to architect a better solution and maybe virtualize some of that data from somewhere else. So that's what drove me to do that, because I had built so many apps and had so much data within my dev org that it was completely broken. So don't make that mistake.
200 megabytes a lot, David.
It is.
But when you, dev org, yeah.
You use it for everything, it tends to get bogged down, especially if you're, I used that when I first got started. So, you know, back when I didn't know a whole lot, my practices weren't the most, you know, efficient. Got to go back and change a lot of that. So that architect certification helped me make my dev org work again. So, but Phil has a question. I'm going to scroll up here in the chat. He asks, from Adam's point of view, how are the non-core clouds, especially manufacturer, growing? Are they becoming larger and a larger part of your workload?
No, that's a good question. I'm actually working on education cloud at the moment in the customer that I'm in. So I'm like yourself. I'm sitting in a customer, or if you're aspiring Trailblazer, you'll be sitting in a customer very, very soon, I hope. Yeah, so it's funny. Salesforce is a platform and you can do a lot of things on it, but unless you I guess have a industry and a vision, you can probably not do much with it. So I think the verticals of, like you said, manufacturing cloud, there's all the what's Salesforce industries, if you will. I think they're becoming more and more common, and they're definitely, what they do is they give a customer, I think, the 80%. Right? So it's like, we've got a platform, we can do anything with it. Well, we've got a platform and we've got an industry blueprint. Okay, now it's the best practice of your industry. A lot of the time it's data model to your industry. So if you go from one telco to another telco, you would generally find the same data model. You will generally find the same information you're capturing about the data. So that's what the industries give. The industries give that blueprint, that those industry-wide common processes and data models and features for then for your company to go, okay, well, I'm now going to then put our processes on top of that and extend that, and that's where we get our point of difference. And I guess our IP from what is consistent across the industry for that, for that particular time. So they're getting more. Health cloud has kicked off, financial service cloud, manufacturing cloud, I think in the US. The clouds are becoming more and more popular, but don't forget the core. The clouds sit on the core. So understand your core first, your sales service, experience, and then if you're really interested, or if you do have your background technology or other experience, then obviously venture into those ones. You can't be an expert of everything, and you also have to enjoy yourself. So the platform is really big. Venture into something that really excites you, and when you get bored of it, then venture into something else. You got lots of time, and then you got lots of clouds.
Yeah, that's great advice. I was the past couple of certifications that I've studied for have just been purely for joy, not so much because I use it in my job, but because it's really interesting to me, and that just makes the study process easier. So the user experience designer certification, which just came out, I was like, oh, it looks interesting. It does relate to my job, but I'm passionate about the way things look. Being a solution engineer, I want everything to be crisp and clean and performant, and so that certification was a great way to engage that passion and just be able to dive down deep into the things that I like to do on the platform. So Adam's absolutely spot on with that. We've got a few more hands raised, Marcus, Gerald, and Angel. But before we get to that, I wanted to snap a quick photo for those folks that do want to participate. Totally optional. But if you want to participate in the group photo, which we snap every week, go ahead and unmute your video at this point, and I will take a quick photo. We typically share that on social media, so if you're hiding out, you can feel free to keep your video on mute. Or if you're having a pajama day, which is totally fine, that's okay too. All right, so let me get my camera ready here. All right, and on a count of 3, 3, 2, 1. All right, let me make sure that, yep, looks good. And so we'll go back to our questions list. Thanks for participating in the photo. Marcus, you're up, sir. Did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I had a question. I hope you can hear me. I'm having some problems with
Hey,
the mic.
Marcus.
I am, and you may have answered this before, and I could have missed it, but I am a developer at heart. I am one of those people who, like a mechanic, wants to get deep down into the code, work it with my hand, just work Apex and make it do exactly what I want to. Should this be something that I look into, or this architect be something I look into, or is it more of a thing for maybe people who are more interested in DevOps?
No, that's a good question. So I think so first of all, Marcus, I'd say I love code as well. When I came into the Salesforce ecosystem, I was programming in PHP and .NET. The biggest challenge I found myself was to go clicks before code. So back then it was workflows. We didn't even have process builders, so workflows, and validation rules and so on and so forth. S controls. So the first piece of advice I'd give you is you need to teach yourself to enjoy doing a flow before you revert, a lightning flow trigger before you revert to an Apex trigger. Okay. Now, just because you can, sorry about my dog who's barking, just because you can do something in a flow doesn't mean you should. And it's that 80-20 rule. So you might, if you're working in a really large org with really large data, you might need to move. You might have logic sitting in Apex trigger for performance. Although lightning flow triggers claim to be faster and more performance than Apex triggers. So that's my first piece of advice. So when you're sitting in the code and you love the code, put your headphones on, chuck a bit of Armin van Buuren on. I mean, it's wonderful, but then you might not have a lot of interaction with the business. You might not understand what the business value is of this feature. So my second piece of advice is you've got to teach yourself to love the why. Why are we writing this code, right? Or why are we building this thing? Is this really going to work for the business? The business asked for a wall and you painted it red, right? They didn't ask for a red wall. They asked for a wall. Sometimes the customer doesn't even know what they want. Maybe they really wanted, a little hut instead of like a full-walled house. So really, really understand the business case and the user story behind the code as well. So that's my second piece of advice. And so the answer to your question, should I go down the architect route? If you want to stay as a developer, I think you're going to be a technical architect anyway when you naturally get more experience on the platform. Okay, so technical architect is just like senior dev. You're leading other devs. You love helping devs. You have the dev standards and coding patterns, the breadth across the platform that your juniors won't have. Okay, so therefore you're naturally going to be that senior. A technical architect, I think, is just like a senior dev, but they understand more about the why, not just about the how, and they're more of a leader rather than a doer. So yeah, are you a leader or a doer? And if you're a doer and you want to stay as a doer, that's fine. Label yourself as a senior dev, and you'll have fun and you'll enjoy yourself. If you feel like you're naturally leading, then I think you'll naturally kind of, flow that way, to speak. Does that help you?
Pardon the pun.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I know. It's a bad pun.
Awesome. Geraldine, you've got your hand raised next, and then we'll get to Angel's question.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for being here. So you had kind of told us a little bit already about some tips and tricks that you have when you're designing solutions. One being making sure that you're looking at what's currently there from objects and fields, not just jumping to custom objects and fields. Also looking at licenses and limits. What are some other words of advice that you would give us, or questions that maybe we should ask as we are designing solutions for customers?
Good point, Geraldine. And you know what, David, I think you're sharing one of these points as well today from another David who works at Google, David Liu. And you know, when a business wants something, usually it's all about, you know, the reporting. Okay, so if you actually look at the reporting and go back, then you'll have a better time solutioning your design. So if there's certain reports that you need, you might need certain relationships in the data to support those reports. So therefore your design might look different, or you might add some extra roll-ups or lookups or all those types of things to support that reporting. So I think I'm trying to look at a solution design page in my head. So first and foremost, you got your licensing. Then you've got, on licensing, you've got governing limits. You don't know your governing limits until you know the number of transactions. So, you know, if a customer wants to take service queries on their service cloud, well, how many cases are you going to create? So if you're going to create 1,000 cases a day, you know, what does that mean for the limits? What does that mean for data and storage and so on and so forth? You've got API limits as well. Okay, so I would say transaction volumes is really important. You know, if we're doing 1 million cases a month, that would mean that we might run out of storage in, say, 3 months or 6 months or 9 months time, depending on the number of users you have. So you would then need to look at a backup and archiving strategy as well. Okay, so licensing, governing limits, number of transactions is all going to help you make sure that your customer's not going to you know, run out of space or hit data limits where it kind of just falls over and says, oh, you know, you've had too many emails go out today, native emails, not Marketing Cloud, of course, Apex emails, or you've hit your API limit for this particular user per day or per hour, that you might have to solution your design differently. Maybe you might have to batch API or run a job to batch things up rather than having a you know, instant request and response go out. And sorry if I'm getting a bit too technical here. So, but eventually the business process, whatever that is. So if it's a sales process, what are my stages? Okay, what are my pipeline stages? But eventually there's going to be some reporting. Okay, so I think reporting is key. Understanding what the business wants to look at, and quite often they don't know what to look at, and that's why Salesforce kind of has these, you know, off-the-shelf, stock standard, industry-wide or globally wide base processes that you might do. And so you can then guide the customer and say, well, you know what, if you got sales, you'd probably be looking at a pipeline report. And if you're multi-region, you probably want to segment that by, you know, by region, right? So, and you know, if you don't really have probability ratings today, well, here's some standard ones here. So it's almost like the customer knows what they want, but they sometimes don't know what they need, and they don't know how to get there. But they will get there, and that is reporting. Other things like data models. So solution designing, you need to look at your data model. What objects are we using? What fields are we using? Is that going to be suitable? So we're going to use cases. Well, we've got stage, support process rather. We've got a case number. We've got a description. We've got all the collaboration like notes and stuff like that. But you know what? In our business, we really need this field. I'm gonna put that down and note it's going to be a custom field. So when we go to build it, we know We've got 3 custom fields to do on case. We've got a bunch of support processes to do, maybe a particular layout, so on and so forth. For this particular persona, maybe they're a support agent, okay? Good ones, personas. When you're building something, you're going to be building something or designing something, you're going to be building something for a persona. I've got a CEO, I've got a manager, I've got a support agent. I might have a team leader with a little bit more rights than a support agent. And the permissions, so the profile, so persona, I'm going to say is you might be saying, Adam, what's a persona? Well, a persona is what I would call someone like a support agent. They have a profile, they have a role, they should have, I should say rather, permission sets. There's a great article around data model and security. Reach out to me, Geraldine, on LinkedIn. I think we're first already about that, on having CRUDs, that's create, read, update, delete, and FLAs, field level access, and other perms like system perms being in permission sets rather than profiles. Okay, so I think permission sets are just as important as profiles these days. You might have public groups as well. So I'm a support agent and I'm going to be in the public group of something because the queue uses a public group to route support requests to, right? So personas are really important because you're going to be building something, and you might be building one thing for 3 personas. So they might have different page layouts. They might be able to access certain fields or not access certain fields. Integrations. So if you're looking at integrations, note all of them down. What integration pattern you're going to use. Request and response is an integration pattern, and the features that we can use for request and response is lightning flow trigger with the synchronous call out. You've got asynchronous call outs, which is called continuation. You've got outbound SOAP message. That's a fire and forget. Okay, so where the downstream system handles the errors, not Salesforce itself. You got remote call in, so another system coming in, maybe I was going to say an ESB, MuleSoft is going to listen, or another system is connecting through MuleSoft, and then it comes into Salesforce and does something either via native connector or maybe via a custom REST service that you've built. User stories is going to be part of your would form part of your project documentation. But yeah, so user stories is, I'm going to log into Salesforce as this persona, and I'm going to create a case. That's a user story. So understanding those user stories or user journeys as well. That's the next level down from solution design. But if you're in small to medium, you're going to be doing everything. So yeah, I think they're the main parts. Please, anyone speak up if I've missed a really important. BAU support documentation. So when you're solution designing something and then you're building it, your job is to make sure the customer is not successful today, but successful in the future as well. So you're also helping the customer be if you're an SI, be that business continuity. So you'd often say, okay, well, here's the solution we did. If you need to add a pick list value, if you need to add a new industry to this pick list, this is how you do it. If you've got this integration, we found these errors and we've handled these errors on while we're building and testing. But here's an error handling. Onboarding a support agent. Here's the profile role and permission sets. Here's the persona. Here's how to onboard that support agent. Here, if you don't have automatic user, IAM or automatic user provisioning, and SSO, which is single sign-on to the Salesforce platform, that you might have to, your customer might have to onboard people manually. So create a user. So they need to know how they create a user. my support agent has this profile with this role, with these permission sets, with this group, and we need the is knowledge user ticked because they use knowledge management as well. Okay. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other suggestions on Good Doco before we wrap it up, because we're almost out of time?
I did want to get to Angel's question before we close, and I think
Okay.
Wade wanted to pass a quick note. I would just say, Geraldine, as you get more experience, I'm a big fan of checklists. So I'll develop a checklist for whatever I'm going to do, and you know, a design checklist is certainly something that will help you throughout your career as you add more things to it, more considerations, and then you can branch that out into the different industries and different use cases. So we'll get to Angel's question, and then Wade wants to pass a quick note about some opportunities that he's got going. Angel, you have the floor.
Thanks, David, and thank you, Adam, for doing this. My question is about breaking into a career in Salesforce. So just to give you a little bit of background so I can frame the question, I'm in the process of retiring from the Army after 30 years. And
wow,
I kind of found,
thank you for your service.
Yeah,
wow.
So I kind of found Salesforce by accident after reading David's story. I got on Trailhead and started playing with it and kind of fell in love right away. So that was about 4 months ago, and now I've completed my admin cert, and I'm in the application process for hiring our heroes. So with all that being said, you know, hopefully that'll lead to a permanent job offer. But as I do more research into job announcements and stuff, and also networking, I'm finding two different things. One, most job announcements say you have to have 2 years plus of Salesforce experience. And then when I network with people and they ask for my resume, they're like, wow, you've been in the Army for 30 years and your resume is great, but you're probably overqualified. So I'm kind of in that space where I'm either overqualified or don't have enough experience. So what recommendations do you have maybe to kind of overcome that and actually be able to break into a Salesforce career?
Good question. The first thing, I've popped my LinkedIn in the chat there. So for anyone who wants to ask me more questions after today, please click on there, click connect. I will accept your connection. I'm more than happy to ask, answer any questions now, in a month, or in 2 months. I love giving back. I'm always happy to assist. So your direct question, there is I think, David, did you put aspiring trailblazers in the chat today for a resource? If you didn't, Angel, there's a great deck that I've got. Maybe it's a few other things like personal branding and looking at the ecosystem, but it is a bit of a hustle. So looking at what SIs you have, it's all about timing as well. So looking about what SIs you have in your region, and the GSIs are always there as well. Getting to the hiring managers, not necessarily when they have a job, but or the recruiters, the internal recruiters, I should say, not necessarily when they have a job, but when when you are networking, when they don't have a job, make sure they know you, make sure they know what you want, and who you are, right? And it's all about timing. So I think as an ecosystem this year, we're definitely looking at hiring the aspiring trailblazer, getting more blood per se into the industry. Salesforce has got something called Talent Alliance, where all the SIs have joined and say, hey, we're going to hire juniors and so on and so forth. But it's all about timing. My brother-in-law, 9 months he searched to get a job. I just helped another gentleman the other day. We were talking for about 3 months before he ended up getting a job. And it's just about timing. So it's about the hustle, the timing. I think you're doing a lot of the right things. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll ping you that deck as well, which will give you some more ideas. Don't give up. Keep learning, okay? Your background experience will give you so many transferable skills across the Salesforce industry, okay? But you're starting from point A like everyone else on the platform. You're coming with a lot of background experience, which is going to help you go faster, quicker, like Mr. Nava here, okay? But yeah, don't give up. Okay.
And I would add, Angel, that's a great question, and unfortunately,
I could have spoken for about 20 minutes on that, but
yeah, we could spend a whole session on that, and I'm more than happy to do that in the future, to have that continuing conversation with you. What I am going to post and I don't know if you've had a chance to see it yet, but I'll post it in chat. It's a link to my professional portfolio that I built on Experience Cloud, and one of the pages on there has some shared content. And there are 2 presentations that are both PowerPoints as well as video presentations that I've delivered on how to do that transition, and exactly, from a process-oriented perspective, how to execute that. So I'd invite you to take a look at those and then come back next week with any questions, and we can continue to explore that as we move forward. Fantastic question, and you're not the only one on this call, I'm sure, with that question. It is challenging to get work experience when you can't be hired without work experience, but you're doing the right things. The Hiring Our Heroes program is the golden ticket to getting that work experience, and greater than 85% of folks that jump into that program end up getting a role in the ecosystem with a partner firm. So I would stick with that, and to keep networking, and keep building your professional brand, and we can talk about more of that in the future. I know we're over time, and I appreciate everyone's patience. Wade, I know you had something that you wanted to put out real quick. Did you want to take the floor for a moment?
Yeah, so this is a perfect question to end on. I am a senior solution engineer here at Salesforce, and I actually teach a course for how to transition out of the military into whatever career you want. Obviously, we focus a little bit more on Salesforce. It is a 2-day course, 2 hours each day. Like Adam and David mentioned, this is a subject you could talk a lot about, but we have this kind of dialed into a science. I work with well over 100 veterans on this subject, and I teach you how to not look at this from a job search, a traditional job search perspective, and to think about it more like the difference between an army force of 3,000 troops going into a battle, and switch that over to a strategic SEAL team with 10 people who are going to take on 250 insurgents. And how do you do that? You do that with intelligence. And so it's all about how to gather that intelligence, how to be a good mentee, how to find the right people who are going to help you, how to get the right information. And that way you can be really strategic with how you go about your process, and not only find a job, but find the right job for you. So I put a link to the sign up sheet here. It is a Google Sheet, so you'll have to request access to it. I don't have a date yet, but it'll be here in the next couple of weeks or so. But I highly suggest it. Like I said, every single veteran that I have had that has used this program and who's followed the procedures in there has either gotten a better job, a job in the first place, gotten into Salesforce, you name it. We've gotten tremendous feedback from that, and it's actually going to become part of Salesforce's veteran hiring practice to start with this transition program, and then work into things with other people here at Salesforce. So please sign up, and I hope you guys enjoy.
That's awesome, Wade. Came along at the perfect time, so I appreciate that. Thanks very much. We are over time now, so before we do close, though, I wanted to thank Adam Best very much for spending the time to educate us about the architect career path, talk about branding and professional development. Thank you so much. And also thank you to all of you for spending time with us on your Wednesday evening in the spirit of collaborative engagement and mentorship. Hope to see you next week, and have a great rest of your week. Stay safe, everyone.